Is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 357, and a wonderful guest for a Monday evening. I've got none other, you can see him now on the opposite side of the screen, than Flash Morgan Webster. Flash, awesome to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, John. I'm good. I will be lying if I say I'm not a little tired after this long WrestleMania weekend, but I think if you're not tired after WrestleMania, then you didn't do it right.
Well, I've got my coffee, so that's going to give me a little bit of a buzz during the course of this interview. But before we take a deep dive with Flash, just a quick reminder, March and already April has been some busy months, a busy month or two for Wrestling with Johners. Recent guests have included Eddie Dennis, somebody that Flash knows very well. Millie McKenzie was on the show in March, as was the brand new Progress Men's World Champion, Kid Lykos. The month finished off with Ironclad Kurt Atlas and the Warrior Spirit Echo all joining me in March. And my first interview of April started with the Plunder Taker, the hero of the high seas, Arthur Scurro, and I still get a little bit of a chuckle every time I say his nickname there. But after Flash, I've got Lou Nixon joining me on the 16th. He's just been over to Philly, of course, and taken part in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. So saw it live. Hell of a show, hell of a match. But today, it's all about this guy here. And shout out to Elliot93, Elliot Marriott, for the fantastic graphic and the fantastic artwork there. But as you said, Flash, it's been the busiest weekend on the wrestling calendar. Certainly over in Philly, 2 nights of WrestleMania. I watched both nights live, and I'm feeling a little bit weary, but it's okay. I've got my coffee. But the busiest kind of weekend on the wrestling calendar, kind of over in Philly for independent shows, over here in the UK, and in Cardiff as well, no less. And you wrestled for Attack Saturday and Sunday. And tell us a bit about your WrestleMania, or should I say your RaffleMania weekend, Flash.
Yeah, it was a good weekend as always. One of my highlights is being able to get to Cardiff and kind of being able to just spend a lot of time with my friends, seeing Mark Andrews staying at his house as well. And then both Mike Hitchman, Brendan White, Eddie Dennis, all around, Danny Jones, everyone's around Danny Luna. So just getting to see everybody. So that's a real highlight for me nowadays, considering I don't live in Wales. So that's great. But yeah, night one was fantastic. Trying to get my hands on the 24/7 championship. Didn't quite get it done. I'm only a one-time 24/7 champion. That slippery James Ellis seemed to leave the bingo hall with that championship. But we did manage to pick up the win when it came to tag team competition on night 2, as we took on the Ring Crew Express, me and Mark. So a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And of course, we are live. I neglected to mention at the top of the show, we are live across Facebook, X, Twitch and YouTube. So if you're watching, throw us a follow, throw us a like, throw us a subscribe, and get in touch with the show. Send us your questions, or your comments through for Flash Morgan Webster, and we'll try our very best to answer them during the course of the interview. We had a ton come through before we went live. We've had a few drop in already. I will take a look at them very, very soon. But speaking of this weekend, and I think night 1 of RaffleMania Saturday was at now you might need to tell me my pronunciation here. Is it the Cathy's Community Centre in Cardiff? Cathays. This is why I've got you along, Flash. This is why I've got you along. The Cathays Community Centre. All my Welsh viewers are going to be sending hate DMs now. But that must take you back every time you go there, especially for Attack, because that was kind of one of the original homes for Attack Pro Wrestling, and to have to go back inside an Attack ring all these years later, the same venue, that must be pretty cool for you.
Yeah, I always kind of say that, like, for me, I've always had 2 homes in British wrestling, and Attack is one of those. I think how apt as well that we were in the small hall in Cathays for so many years, and then we heard there was a second hall next door that none of us ever heard about. And then when it initially got opened up and they were able to clear some of the furniture out there and stuff like that, we walk in and we're like, it's a bingo hall. It's like, was this made to be? So it is one of the few active bingo halls in Wales, well, in the UK, really, that wrestling is held in. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and when you look at companies like Attack Pro Wrestling that came back from January last year, 2023. And other companies, you look at the work that Brendan's doing at New Wave and the shows they're running and the talent that's kind of breaking in and coming onto the scene in South Wales. I would have to say that the South Wales wrestling scene is definitely back to full strength. I would go so far as to say it's possibly stronger than ever, especially when you look at the mix of experienced guys coming back onto the scene, like yourself, Mark Andrews, Eddie Dennis, Wild Boar, etc., and the new grassroots talent that's really coming through. It's a fantastic mix nowadays, isn't it?
It is. I think it's always kind of been there, like that West Midlands and Welsh connection. Myself, Mark Andrews, Eddie Dennis, Wild Boar, and then kind of Pete Dunne, Ryan Smile, so on and so on. That connection was always there. And I believe that was kind of one of the things that kind of kick-started the boom in British wrestling. Of course, British Strong Style went on to kind of be the forefront of that, and everyone I just named was also in the likes of Progress, in the likes of Revolution Pro, Fight Club Pro, stuff like that, when it was at its absolute peak. And then you've got people like you said, Danny Jones, Brendan White, Danny Luna, who are the generation after us, who have kind of, picked up, not where we left off, but kind of picked up where we were and just kind of taken it to a whole nother level and kind of chasing that. So I feel like the reason it's as big as it is right now is because not only do we have that great mix, as you said, of those established people who were there at the forefront of that boom of British wrestling, kind of leading the way, but also we have such an undercurrent of fantastic young talent coming through that are learning from us, but also pushing us and going to heights and levels that we could have only dreamed of doing at their age.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to take you back to a social post I think you put out, certainly on your Instagram at the end of last year. And it was referencing a certain point in time, early 2023, when you were contemplating or considering possibly hanging up the boots and retiring in 2023. When you look back at how 2023 eventually ended up, you must be so pleased that you never made that decision to retire at the beginning of 23.
Yeah, it's such a weird one, isn't it? Like, I can kind of fully take myself back to that moment in the headspace I was in, and it wasn't so much like I was in a negative mind space. It was just I'd had a tough couple of years, as we all had with the pandemic, and I'd had injuries as well, and as a WWE, and then we got released just before Clash of the Castle, and it's kind of having that retrospective looking at what I'd wanted to do with wrestling, what I'd achieved with wrestling, and then kind of looking and going, right, so where do I stand in this grand scheme of things anymore? Where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And how much do I want to give to this? Not just, I always will want to give as much as I can to wrestling, but body-wise, physically, as I said, I was coming off an injury. And I was, as I said, ready to hang up those boots. And I think I kind of like I can tell you right now, I had a match with Chuck Mambo, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought to myself, hey, maybe I just kind of see out this year. Maybe I just see where it goes, have a bit of fun, and then see where, maybe I don't have to, chase stuff. I don't have to hustle. Maybe I can just kind of enjoy the stuff as it comes to me. And then little by little, I enjoyed more opportunities. And as I said, 2023 became arguably my favorite year I've ever had personally. Like, I could turn and say I've probably had bigger achievements, but the enjoyment I got out of that year was just immense.
Yeah, and just think, if you hadn't have had that match with Chuck Mambo, you might have continued 2023 slightly differently or completely differently. But where's your mindset now then, Flash, kind of as we get further into 2024? Off the back of a very, very successful 2023, there must be a lot of kind of motivation there. Where's your mindset currently?
It's a weird one, I guess. With wrestling, it's like you're always kind of looking for that next thing. You're always looking for that next goal, that next achievement. But I kind of entered this year, 2024, after arguably one of the biggest years I've ever had in 2023, with no real kind of goal set or achievements. And I guess it is because I am just looking to kind of enjoy it. And one of those big factors that has led to me enjoying it is being able to travel the world with Danny Luna and Mark Andrews and just have as much fun as I possibly can. So I guess my achievements for this year is to just try to tick off some more countries, have a lot of fun while doing it, and just continue to make memories. I think that is my goal in my headspace at the moment.
Absolutely. And we have had a few questions come through. We've got people watching us at home. Just going to bring up some quick comments. We've got Beth watching us live via X. Thank you, Beth. Hi, guys. Thank you, Beth. And Richie Horrigan. Nice tea, Flash. Just show us the tea there. And I think We're going to talk more about your merch towards the end of the show. So if you're interested in subculture merchandise, then stay tuned. Stay tuned. I want to talk to you about another kind of big milestone of yours that happened, I think, around about July or August of last year. And obviously, we're very familiar. I've had a ton of guests on this show from New Wave Wrestling Academy in Newport. Brendan White's team there, fantastic team of trainers and recruits and trainees there. And in the summertime of 2023, this came onto our radars, New Wave West Midlands. And there you are. It's not the blue tees of the Newport brand, it's the yellow tee, or maybe the mustard tees of the West Midlands brand. And there you are with some of the guys there. That's a ring full of trainees and recruits. But give us a bit of a glimpse, give us a bit of an insight into kind of the early seeds of New Wave West Midlands and what those conversations looked like and why you decided to become a full-time trainer and coach.
So I guess there's two parts to this. So I was at NXTUK, and we were having camps that we go to every 6 weeks, and I was finding that I needed somewhere to train. So there was a local school to me, and I say school is a lot smaller than what we have now, but it was a school called the Barracks, run by a guy called Birch. And I just approached him. I'd done a seminar there, I think maybe 2 seminars there, and I knew he had 1 or 2 decent guys there. So I reached out to him and said, hey, there was like 2 guys, and I said, these guys are real good. I'm looking for a place to train. Is there some sort of deal we can strike here where they come and wrestle around with me once a week? You can offer them this free closed door session that they get with Morgan Webster as part of their membership, absolutely free, nothing else they have to pay on top. And I just get a place to train. And Birch was really great. And Birch went, yep, we can definitely do that. And he allowed me to come down and train. Those 2 lads were Act 2. So
I love them guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Started training with those every single week. And when I got hurt and I had my rehab and had my surgery, they were the guys that helped rehab me back as well. So whenever I need to get back in the ring and train, they were doing that all behind the scenes and closed doors. Nobody spoke about it. We didn't tell anybody we were doing it. It was just us lot training. And then we got, I got released in I do believe it was the September. And I approached Birch. I knew that he was opening up a new unit. And I said to him, is there something we can do here where I'll come in and I'll train once or twice a week? I believe that the expertise, and I'm showing already with what Act 2 are learning, how good they've got, that I have the skills to do it. And it just meant that Birch could do a little bit less and I could be a bit more hands-on. He was very happy with that. So we did that for about, I want to say 2022, I think it was. And I was training there twice a week in the Barracks Pro Wrestling Academy. And over the course of that year, Birch is a great guy, but I felt like as we went on that year, he was wanted to take things in one direction. I was wanting to take it in a different direction. And little by little, I felt like, not that we were butting heads, but our ideas and our ideologies weren't lining up. And I think he was slowly realizing that he wasn't enjoying it as much as he maybe was a few years ago. He said that he'd had a tough time with the pandemic and it was hard to get back to it. So there came a point where he approached me and said that he was thinking of selling up. And I said to him, well, if you are selling up, can I have first refusal on this? And he said, yeah. And now I thought to myself, he put so much time and effort in with a lot of these trainees that I didn't want to just kind of like, again, I could have just opened up a unit down the road. I could have bought a ring. I could have bought mats. And I could have just kind of started my own training, would have gone head to head with this man who had done a lot for me over that year. And I thought, no, even though it was a little bit more expensive, I wanted to kind of make sure that he was taken care of. So I ended up purchasing the Barracks Pro Wrestling off him. And when that happened, now while this was going on, and there was kind of talks about me potentially buying it, I was speaking to Brendan White, and I was very helpful with him. And I think he might have said this when he was on you, that I was the guy who rang him and said he should be taking over Dragon Pro, which then became New Wave. And then that conversation kind of 180'd, and he was saying to me, you need to take over this school. And when I decided and told him that I was going to do it, him and Walbo instantly turned and said to me, well, if you're going to do it, it needs to be New Wave, doesn't it? Like, it needs to be this entity. We have the same feelings for wrestling. We have the same approach to wrestling. And it can all be under one roof, and we can offer the Welsh trainees can come to me, West Midland ones can go to them, and it can just be a one-stop shop and a collaboration of schools. So we had a talk about it, and then I think I purchased it in the August, I think, the school. But we had stuff in the works, and then we spent the next 6 weeks renovating, putting stuff down, getting as good as hot as possible. And then the first week of September hit, and we were ready to go, and we haven't looked back since.
Off to the races. And
Yeah.
give us a bit of an idea as far as what your day-to-day role or responsibilities are, and what sort of days you run courses and what those courses look like. And I've got a couple of graphics now. They kind of give a bit of insight into the days of the week and the certain things that you do on those days. But tell us from your own mouth, kind of what's your day-to-day and what does it look like if you're a trainee there?
So we offer 4 classes a week. They vary from foundation classes to mixed to advanced. So what we do is we tell people if they're getting involved in professional wrestling, you can come down and you can train on a Wednesday or a Saturday. Those sessions are taken either by myself or Jack Nudson from Act 2. So from there, then we give you kind of the basics and the fundamentals and the good foundations in professional wrestling. Once we get you to a good standard, we believe that you can break fall, you can wrestle around competently, you can roll, and you aren't a danger to yourself or others. We will allow you then to enter the Thursday class, which is mixed. So really from the offset, you can kind of, if you want to, after you get through that foundation course, you can go to almost 12 sessions a month. And 80% of those then will be taken by me. And then once you get to a certain level, and we believe that you're competent enough then that you can come to the advanced levels and the advanced session, you can then also come to a Tuesday. So then you are able then to come to 16 sessions a month. And we offer memberships that are either 10 sessions a month, 13 sessions a month, or unlimited. And on top of that as well, we're one of the very few professional wrestling schools in the UK that allow people to have 24-hour access. So we have a school that has a key locking system. We have a booking system called Team Up, and when you sign up to an open session, which are on the calendar, so you can sign up. Let's say you want to sign up at 8 o'clock on a Monday night when we don't run sessions. You can sign that up, and then you'll be sent a code, and that code then will allow you to have access to the building, and you can use it whenever you want. So I know that's a big selling point as well, on top of a lot of stuff that even though you are being trained by me 3 or 4 times a week, outside of that, then if you can't make sessions, or if you do just want to kind of drill stuff yourself with myself or other students like they do, then you can have that 24 hours a day. So again, sometimes people are there 7 days a week.
Absolutely. And for any young aspiring wrestlers, or maybe anybody with a bit of experience that want to try New Wave West Midlands, how can they get in touch? What's the best way of becoming a trainee, becoming a recruit with New Wave West Midlands in Flash?
Well, there's 2 options there. I guess we can go to Google, and if you type in New Wave Wrestling West Midlands, you'll be sent to our website. It has all the information on there, and you can do an application form, and then myself or Jack will get back to you then in a day or 2. Or you can drop us a message on Instagram, or you can drop us a message on Facebook. So again, search New Wave Wrestling West Midlands on either of those, and you'll find us and drop us a message. I know some people are very eager, so I'll have somebody sometimes drop an application form, then they'll drop a message on Instagram, then they'll drop a message on Facebook, all in the course of 3 or 4 hours. All I ask is please give us a few days, because sometimes we have a lot of applications coming through, and it is just myself that deals with that a lot of the time. So and we do try to read and make sure that when you do apply, that we are able to kind of give you as much information as possible and make sure you're ready as well. So I usually wait till we have about 5 or 6 applications in a row, and then I'll do a day of ringing people around. So if you don't hear of me for a day or 2, please at least give us a week and I will get back to you.
There we go. Just be patient. Just be patient. But much like New Wave Wrestling Academy in Newport, New Wave Wrestling West Midlands already started running shows, or they've had their first show under their belts. This one here, Power Slams in the Potteries, a couple of weekends ago, Saturday the 23rd of March. And now that was a sold-out show, so congratulations. But to tell us a bit about that, and obviously Brendan's been running shows through New Wave in Newport for probably getting on for a couple of years now, and they've been a massive success with a real blend, a real mix of experience levels there, and obviously to get their trainees, their recruits on the card, to get some match time and experience, and they're all kind of thriving under that environment and under them shows. But tell us a bit about your first show and how you think it went.
Yeah, it was great. To be fair, I always said, oh, okay, if we get 100 people in, I'll be happy. That was my aim, 100 people. And we got close to 200 were hit capacity of the building, so that was really, really great.
That's great.
We made sure that there was a student from our school in every single match. Tried to make sure there was a good balance there of putting people in there with experienced hands like myself, like Brendan, like Wild Bull, Mike Hitchman, and making sure that everyone was kind of in a position to learn and progress and excel from that. It's a little different up here, I guess, to a new way of done in Wales. There's a lot of wrestlers in Wales, and I feel that when you look at the scene in Wales, there is a lot of wrestling going on, but I also feel like there's a lot of shows that have and feature a lot of the same wrestlers. So I think with the Midlands being so vast and so big, that a lot of my trainees up here, once they get to a standard that they're able to go out and be on shows, they're really kind of able to get on shows a lot easier, I feel, because there's just so many shows in the West Midlands. And I also feel as well that the standard in which I am training people at now, we've got some people who have come from me and only been trained by me maybe like a year and a half, and are only like 5 or 6 matches deep. There's a guy called Luca Romeo who literally is like less than 10 matches deep, and whenever he has matches, people are like, I can't believe you're only 10 matches in. And I think that, again, that's a testament to how hard he works, but also a testament, I think, to the caliber of which we are training people up here. So we will be putting on more shows. We do have one planned. Tickets aren't on sale yet, but there is one going to be August 10th. So people keep your eye out on that. So that'll be our next show. But for us, it's not so much about trying to give people their reps, as they say, because I feel a lot of my students who are getting out there are able to get their reps because of the vast number of shows in the West Midlands. But for us, it's about making sure that those reps are quality reps, and we're trying to put people in there with experienced hands so they can accelerate their learning.
Absolutely. Is there a collab show happening sometime soon between yourself and
There is.
June the 23rd, Waves Collide? Tell us about that. The poster looks amazing. The show just kind of jumps off the page. I might have to get myself down there, but I think that's actually taking place in Cardiff, so not too far from me. But to tell us a bit about that, because that's going to be like brand warfare, isn't it? You've got New Wave Wrestling Academy down in Newport. You've got New Wave West Midlands going head-to-head. Waves Collide Flash.
That might be one of my favorite posters I think Elliot's ever done.
It's pretty neat, isn't it?
Really, really good. Yeah, so again, this was an idea from, collaboration idea, I guess, from Brendan and myself. So we were kind of looking at, I think that was an idea, and it was almost put in place before my Power Slams and the Potteries became a thing. So Brendan kind of said that he just run the Vale, and he had a great reception from the Vale, and he was talking about running it again. And he knows that myself and Bo have run big venues like that for Pro Wrestling Chaos, and I think he was looking to do something a little different from the first show they did, and he approached us and approached me and said, "How about we do something that involves both schools?" And I was like, "I think this is a great idea," and then we suggested the name Waves Collide, and I think it's going to be a fantastic one. Again, that mix of new and established stars coming together, as you said, brand warfare. Trying to kind of make sure and see who comes out on top, and it's going to be an absolutely great affair. And if you haven't already, go get tickets because you're in for a treat.
Can't wait for that one. I'm just going to flash up the poster again. It does have a couple of QR codes that you can scan, or just check the socials, and all the links will be there. But that's going to be one you do not want to miss. But I think it was fondly described, certainly by yourself and various commentators on the scene, as the Summer of Subculture. And I think possibly one of the highlights of 2023 has to be your stints over in Canada, Ontario, and Impact Wrestling, as it was known back then, TNA now. But how did you first kind of get onto Impact's radar, and how did you first kind of get an invite to go over there? Because I think the first time you went over there, you were featured in a pay-per-view, Under Siege, for the tag titles, your first ever match over there. And then while you're over there, you're involved in a set of tapings against the Motor City Machine Guns. And there's a little bit of a still from your first match, the pay-per-view match, and then there you are with the Machine Guns. But that's quite an impressive way to introduce yourself to a new audience, a new fan base. Tell us how it all came about.
So I think a few people asked us this question about how it came about, and then I have to remind them that Mark Andrews was a member of the TNA and Impact Wrestling roster. So the
of course,
I remind people that they go, oh yeah, of course. Like there's the connection straight
Thanks,
away.
Flash.
So yeah, I think that's kind of how it came about. Mark had connections in, and there was a conversation that went on, and we spoke to Jimmy Jacobs, who then of course reached out to Scott Dunmore, and Scott was a big fan of NXT UK. When we got there, we had a proper chat with Scott. He was telling us that he felt that at the time NXT UK was one of his favorite things to watch on TV. It said they were small, manageable episodes, an hour long. They had either ongoing storylines that went on for weeks, or they had a one storyline that would be intricately placed throughout that show. And he thought that that was really interesting and really clever. So when we got there, we thought maybe it was just the case of Jimmy had seen some other stuff and then he'd been put forward, or Mark's history there. But when we got there, we realized that Scott had seen a lot of our stuff, and Scott was already a fan. So we were told we were going to be on there, and we were like, okay. And then it got announced, and we didn't know that it was going to be for the Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Championships, but it was, and it was against ABC, and those guys are absolutely class. And we went out there, and I'll say this now, that we've had some good matches with some people, and we've had some great matches with some people, but I don't think we've ever had instant chemistry with a team like we did ABC. I can't explain it. I don't know what makes it different. That's no knock on any other team we've ever wrestled, but with them, it just felt different. Everything clicked straight away. We kind of put stuff together. They have this creative and different offense, and ours just seemed to gel, and our counters to their stuff and their counters to our stuff, and it just ended up being what many considered that night the best match of the pay-per-view. And we had that, and we were like, whoa, this couldn't go any better. And the plan had been announced, I do believe, that the next night we were gonna wrestle the Good Hands on TV. And luckily for us, and I say this, luckily, I am a friend of Steve Macklin, so I hope he doesn't take offense to this. Luckily for us, Steve Macklin got busted open pretty bad on the pay-per-view, to the point where he was unable to compete the next night. And that meant that card is subject to change. And we were sat in the back chatting to Alex Shelley, and they came past and was like, hey, card's changed. Tonight it's Subculture versus Machine Guns. And Shelley just looked at him and went, you joking? You wind this up? And he's like, nope, that's happening. And then they just walked off, and we just looked at each other. Me and Mark just like, oh my God. We said to ourselves, hey, maybe we can come out. Maybe we can have a great match with Ace and Bay. Maybe we'll get brought back. And then, hey, maybe we can do the Machine Guns match. There was 2 ticks off we wanted to do. That's all it was. And we managed to tick both of them off in one night. So yeah, bucket list stuff, wrestling the Machine Guns, a team that we will hide nothing about, that we definitely steal and model ourselves off. So yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic weekend.
Yeah, and then just a little while later, another trip over to Ontario, another pay-per-view, Slammiversary this time, a 4-way for the Impact World Tag Team Championships, 3 incredible teams, and obviously Subculture in there as well. But you came out the winners. You came out as the brand new Impact World Tag Team Champions. But when you think back to what happened the previous year and September and the doors of NXT UK being closed, and then contemplating retirement early 2023, and then obviously that year just absolutely taking off through to when you won the World Tag Team Championships in Impact. A real 180 there, Flash. But those sort of moments are really, really special, aren't they? How did it feel to you guys when you won the straps after everything you'd been through previously?
I think it was just one of those moments where, like, there's a video out there where we make a joke where we say, you don't put Subculture in multi-man tag team matches where there's tag team championships on the line, because we'll come out on top, as we did in Cardiff and of course in Canada. But yes, it's a lovely little moment where we're kind of walking through the corridor. It's just under a year after we've been released. Me, Danny, and Mark, and it's just validation, because you hear it all the time about people being released from WWE, and I know it sounds a bit cliche, people saying that they felt like their validation and their worth is tied up in that job. And it is hard. As I was there for over 3 years, and you, as a kid growing up watching WWE, you want to kind of succeed, and you believe that what you're doing there is the absolute best. And then to be released does make you kind of question are we worth it? Are we good? Were we not good enough to stay there? Did they not see anything in us? We're not made for TV wrestling. They're not a major promotion that values us. So kind of being in Canada as the Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Champions and knowing that we were about to embark in this little tour around the UK defending these championships for the company, it was just that validation of like, they were wrong. They shouldn't have released us. They didn't. They missed the boat. They missed the boat on Subculture. Subculture has this incredible branding. It has this chemistry between all three of us, and we go out there and we just work our asses off everywhere we are and try to steal the show. And it only took us one appearance at Impact TNA for them to kind of see that and go, okay, we're going to give these guys more opportunities, and we did. And it was just almost like a screw you to the people who didn't think we were good enough, or the people who laughed when we got released, or the people who didn't think that we should be on a major outlet. And it was just as much as it was a kick in the teeth to them, it was a kick up the arse to us to let us know that we are good enough, and validation for all the hard work we put in over the years.
Yeah, definitely that validation. There's a few pictures, the
Mm.
moment when you won the championships, and some backstage shots there. Beautiful belts, great pictures, many congratulations. And as you said, you were able to take the belts on a little bit of a mini tour, and one of those Stop Pro Wrestling, wasn't it? And this one here, August the 4th, against the Greedy Souls. And I think the first time any Impact or TNA championship has been defended on Welsh soil, if I'm not mistaken. So a big occasion for you, a real thrill for yourself, for Attack, and for the Greedy Souls to be a part of that. But with that taking place, in South Wales, what did that mean to you, brand new champions of Impact, defending them on your home turf?
It just meant the world, being able to kind of do that. I don't know if anyone's seen the match. It's on YouTube. If anyone wants to go watch it, it's free. We get a hero's welcome coming through the curtain, which is incredible. Everyone's kind of applauding and cheering. But one of the big things that we just loved was being able to give that opportunity to the Greedy Souls. As much as they are absolute cheating scamps where they want to be, they are arguably one of the best tag teams in the world. I had a conversation just yesterday about this, and I can say this, and people go, yeah, okay, one of the best tag teams in the world, but I believe that top 10 easily. I think they are in there. The things they do, the star power they have, every time I see them, they're better and better. So it wasn't just about being able to defend those belts in Wales, but it was able to defend those championships in Wales against another Welsh team, and a team that we've grown up with, a team we've seen grow, and a team that should be out there and should be on a main platform being showcased. Again, that even though they've done great stuff, I still believe they haven't had their time to fully shine yet. I believe that they're still not being fully utilized, and I believe that the best is yet to come for them. And hopefully, if anyone else goes off and watches that, it's just the beginning of the world seeing just how good they are. So that's what really meant the world for us, for being able to be in the ring with some of our fellow Welshmen, some of our friends, and one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah. Now, feel free to correct me here, but I think I'm right in saying that I don't think you've been back in a Impact or TNA ring since December. Is that right? And if that is correct, are we likely to see you back in the TNA ring anytime soon?
Yeah, I do believe last time was the UK tour, which was absolutely great. We had a lot of fun then. There might have been talks recently. There might have been. I can't confirm or deny this, Jonas. Nothing set in stone. But we are, or we maybe might have been in talks. I think that the door is open. Me and Marcus said that when Danny signed, it was just a matter of we had a conversation with them. We weren't able to come to an agreement that worked for both myself and Mark. Danny is in a very different position to us, a lot younger than us. I know that me and Mark spent a lot of time, Mark longer than me, in WWE. We were signed. There was a lot of restrictions that came with that. We both kind of said to ourselves that if we were to sign somewhere else as well, we would want to make sure that we kind of were signing for the right reasons, and everything was kind of all the all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted and stuff like that. And it made sense for us now. Impact is an absolute great place. Well, TNA is a great place. That locker room is one of the best in the world to be in, just because of the morale and everything else. But sometimes you've got to kind of look past the wrestling and look at your life and look at where you are in your life and kind of make sure that the opportunities and the stuff you're taking is right for you, right for your family. So I think you will. I think you will see us in a TNA ring again, but I can't tell you when. But when we pop back up, I'm pretty confident we will. I think it's something that the fans will rejoice in.
Absolutely, and I just want to kind of shine a bit of a light on Danny Luna, and of course I brought up that picture there. Very much part of Subculture, and of course she is signed to TNA, and there she is, one half of the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions alongside Jody Threat there. Some awesome pictures here. You must be so thrilled and so pleased with Danny, and of course she's a double champ because she's of course the RevPro Undisputed Women's Champion as well. So packing all the gold, but Danny is doing some wonderful work both domestically and internationally, isn't she?
She is. She's absolutely killing it. I talk about Greedy Souls being top 10 tag teams in the world. She's easily top 10 female wrestlers in the world. What I love as well is that we talk about that Summer of Subculture, and you talk about us going to Impact and the rise and the tag team matches we had. But while we were there, she kind of came along and was, I guess, for a lot of people, a bit of an unknown entity, and she was there ticking it on, having great matches with Jody Threat, having great matches with Deonna, with Jordan Grace, and slowly but surely she seemed to turn everyone's heads, and they realized how good she was and why as well she's a member of Subculture and why we consider her to be one of the best in the world. And when that opportunity came up for them to grab her and lock her down to a deal, they did just that. And I believe that the championship she's just won with Jody Threat. Big love for Jody Threat. We love Jody Threat. You're in Subculture. I believe that the championship she's just won is just the beginning. I predict, and I believe that she will be Knockouts World Champion by the end of next year, I reckon, without a shadow of a doubt. I have no doubt in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that we haven't touched on, and of course we spoke about 2023 being the summer of Subculture. And I think approximately a week before picking up the Impact tag titles, you also picked up the RevPro tag titles, didn't you? So after you went over to Ontario, you were double champs, but the RevPro British Undisputed Tag Team Champions, it truly was the summer of Subculture. And I know that you won now, did you, who did you pick up the championships from when you won the RevPro championships? Flash, just remind me.
We beat the Greedy Souls, so they'd had a historic title reign. They'd beaten some of the absolute best this country had to offer in the likes of Sunshine Machine, Lycos Jim, and many others. And we came in, and York Hall, first appearance that I'd been in York Hall since, I want to say 2017, I think was the last time I was at York Hall.
Wow.
And me and Mark walked in as the challengers and walked out as the champions. So absolutely great. And again, we did it the week before we picked up the TNA Tag Team Championship. So that week alone was just absolutely mental to go from being a team that's 6 months before people maybe weren't talking about or maybe didn't understand why we weren't still with WWE or anything like that, and to kind of turn that around in 6 months and then be arguably the biggest tag team champions in the UK, and then become one of the biggest tag teams in the world in the space of a week was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and sticking with the Greedy Souls, because I know you mentioned earlier that you were able to defend the Impact Tag Team Championships in Attack against the Greedy Souls back last summer. But you did have a bit of a fierce rivalry going with the Greedy Souls in RevPro. You obviously picked up the titles from the Souls back last year. And we had somebody reach out before we went live, Darren Ewan. What was it like facing the Greedy Souls in RevPro? I think you've touched on it already, but I want to focus on the rivalry and kind of the matches that you had with the Souls last year, especially in RevPro, because you guys went to war, didn't you?
We did, and I think they're one of those unique teams because, again, if you've ever met either of the boys, They are big boys, both of them. They're really
Yeah.
tall, they're really big, but you kind of underestimate the size they have. Danny Jones is just this fierce technician. So he hits hard, he can throw far, but he's just absolutely incredible when it comes to this technical style of wrestling. And then Brendan White might arguably be one of the most agile big men in the UK. So when you're trying to figure out the problem that is the Greedy Souls, it really is hard, because they just are this absolute perplexity of a team. So I think that as hard, as fierce as it was to wrestle the Souls, I think what really helped us as a team was that we were able to kind of figure them out. We were able to make kind of Subculture this undeniable team and figure out what works for us, what works against opponents like them. And then we came out a better tag team. So again, as much as it was difficult to kind of figure them out and succeed, it did mean that when we walked out as the champions, we not only walked out as champions, but we were a better team for facing the Greedy Souls.
Absolutely. And you held the championships, the RevPro Tag Team Championships, for 266 days. So a wonderful accomplishment, but I never like to upset my guests, but it was only last Sunday, wasn't it? GYV. And this match here, let me just bring up some pictures. The Revolution Rumble back in the York Hall, Bethnal Green. Subculture defending their titles against GYV, the grizzled young veterans. They're making their entrance there. Subculture making their entrance, and the match was incredible. It was everything you'd expect it to be. Now I know, and there's obviously a post-match shot, and dare I say, drown in your sorrows, but at least Danny Luna has the gold there. But I mean, it's probably been close to 4 years since you last faced GYV, and possibly in an NXTUK ring, and I think it may have been that multi-man ladder match in Blackpool, Takeover Blackpool 2, the Empress Ballroom, early December 2020. But you're welcome to correct me there. But being back inside the ring with GYV after such a long period of time, and like I said, a lot's happened in that time. What was that like to be back in there with Drake and Gibson?
Magic. That's what I would describe it. Magic. As much as I turn to say that like Greedy Souls helped us find that new level and take us up a notch, and we became a better team coming out because of them. I'd be lying if I wasn't to say that we wouldn't be the tag team we are if it wasn't for Zach Gibson and James Drake. Me and Mark had teamed a little bit outside of NXT UK, but we found our feet and became a tag team while with the WWE. And the team that we kind of really cut our teeth against and kind of figured out what worked for us was against GYV. And as annoying and as heartbreaking as it is for us to lose the British Tag Team Championships to them, I do believe there is maybe a little bit of revenge on their part, because we, of course, did end their absolute dominant NXT UK Tag Team Championship reign. So I did say that we are currently tied one apiece when it comes to championship bouts, championship titles being on the line. They are now, of course, 3-2 in front of us when it comes to actual matches. But yeah, magic. I felt like we knew everything they were going to do, but unfortunately, I felt like they had a few more tricks up their sleeve, and maybe they knew us a little bit better than we knew them. But I believe this isn't the end of us versus GYV. I believe this is just the beginning of this chapter in the story.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. But GYV, they seem to have come back with the bit between their teeth and this kind of extra edge. We certainly saw that last Sunday in York Hall. But sticking with RevPro just a little bit longer, and I think it was only February, so maybe a couple of months ago, and you were involved in a 6-man scramble, weren't you, for the AEW International Championship. There are some of the competitors there, but there you are. Taking them ferocious, unnecessary kicks from Orange Cassidy, and doing what you do best there, Flash. But that must have been a bit of a thrill for you to kind of, well, it was an AEW appearance, but to be part of that championship match. And it was at the Crystal Palace Sports Arena, wasn't it? So high stakes, a big occasion, and a big match for you.
Yeah, it was incredible. Didn't find out until the day that it was for the AEW International Championship. We expected it to be a 6-way, was it? And it became a 7-way, I think it was. two, of course, then mystery opponents in it. So very hard to kind of plan, a lot hard to kind of prepare for that sort of stuff. But the crowd were just electric. If anyone hasn't seen it, there's a clip I think that is on that Jane, the music hits, and I go from being absolutely shocked to ready in the space of like 30 seconds. I go from being in disbelief to prepare to ready in like 30 seconds. And again, I wasn't pinned in that scramble. So all I'm going to say is when Orange Cassidy is ready, I'll be welcoming that rematch. Whether it's one-on-one or whether it's multi-man, I'll be welcoming that rematch because it was a hell of a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I want to circle back to Subculture and Mark Andrews a little bit later on, but one of the highlight of 2023 has to be ranked in the PWI Top 100 Tag Teams, number 27. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think you were the highest ranked team not signed to a company, but a hell of an accomplishment. And like I say, especially with everything that went down 2022, but with everything you achieved in 2023 and to be ranked number 27 in that very prestigious list, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was something that we didn't really think about. Was something that was on our radar, and it was kind of great to see that out of all the independent tag teams in the world, we were the highest ranked one. So yeah, it was absolutely fantastic to know that articles like the PWI and stuff like that were looking at what we were doing and recognizing the hard work and the accomplishments that we'd had that year. And it's always great as well when it's British tag teams or British wrestlers are in those publications, because we know ourselves that a lot of the time, a lot of the eyes are on America and on Canada, and sometimes we can be a little bit forgotten. So to be that high in those rankings was not just great for us, but I feel great for the British wrestling scene as well.
Yeah, take us back now, and I'm probably going to take you back here, but I know WWE featured this clip or this video a few times, and it's popped up on your socials before, but the very grainy kind of black and white video that you shot of you and your very close friends kind of backyard wrestling however many years ago, but when you look at kind of those clips and those videos and that grainy image now, obviously there's yourself, Mark Andrews, Wild Boar, I think Eddie Dennis is in it as well. When you look at that is kind of like the seeds of what became the future of the South Wales wrestling scene, and what largely became the seeds of the Brit Rest scene in the mid 2010s. Tell us about that time and how special it was to you, because you were just out there having fun with your friends, weren't you?
Yeah, so it's such a crazy one. So like in those clips you talk about, there'll probably be like myself, Wild Boar, Brendan White would be in those, but
Yeah.
I know that Mark Andrews was in another town or another city or whatever, and he was watching our videos on YouTube, watching our videos on forums and stuff like that, and he was then inspired to start his own backyard wrestling in Cardiff. And another cool little bit as well is we had met Eddie Dennis. We didn't know Eddie Dennis, and we show up to training, me and Wild Boar, and we're doing laps and jogging around the room. And Eddie Dennis comes up to us and goes, "You're the backyard wrestling boys," and we're like, "Nope, nope, not us, not us." Trying to keep our head down, didn't want people to know about it. Thought that would get us in a lot of trouble. But it's crazy to think that like these people like Mark, even Pete Dunne as well. Pete Dunne was on the forum. He was watching our stuff. He knew who we were, and he's the reason that myself and Boar got our first English booking, because he knew who we were as backyarders. And once we then got pro and we were taking it seriously, he spoke to Mark Andrews about it. Mark Andrews said, "Yep, they've been doing shows. They're really working hard." And Pete ended up getting us onto those shows then in England. But it is mental to think that like myself, Wabo, Brendan White, and even like Danny Jones, for example, he was like a couple of towns over as a young kid, and says he remembers driving up the new road in from Blaina and seeing the group of these kids wrestling, and he was just like, who are these people? So he would have saw us even when he was even younger, probably about 7 or 8, and then went on to kind of become one of our good friends.
Yeah.
But it is mental sometimes to just about that like I joke and say that Wild Boar Mike Hitchman's Garden has created more WWE featured wrestlers than the country of Belgium, which I think is a mental statistic, because again, myself and Wild Boar were both signed to there. Brendan White, of course, was on the closing episode of SmackDown going into Money in the Bank. So like we have all been on WWE programming, but to go from these kids that were just loved wrestling, and that was what we wanted to do, was wrestle, and people laughed at us, and people kind of didn't understand it, and people thought we were silly for doing it. And now, whenever we go home, people just think it's absolutely mental that this is our full-time livings and that we've achieved what we've achieved. I remember going home Boxing Day a couple of years ago, I think it was maybe 2018, and a guy stopped me and was like, Flash, right, come here. I was like, what's up? And he was like, tell him who you work for. And I was like, what? He's like, tell him who your boss is. And I was like, Triple H. And they were like, no. And he's like, I told you, which is crazy when I think about how much everyone is so supportive now from that valley and what we've done, and they love watching it. But it wasn't always that way. Like, people didn't understand it, they didn't get it. They thought we were wasting our time. We thought we were just silly kids. And everyone I speak to now just kind of says, hey, you proved us wrong. You have a dream, you followed it. And one of my friends the other day said that he always speaks to his kids and always says to his kid, like, they are a walking testament that even if you're from the valleys, if you have a dream and you want it, go after it and go get it. So yeah, I'm just kind of reminded a lot of the time of how far we have come from that small garden in South Wales.
Yeah, and speaking about friends just wrestling and having fun, you were very much a part of the early days. And in fact, I think you were part of the very first show and onwards for Attack Pro Wrestling, emanating from various venues in the West Midlands and the Cattays Community Centre. See, I got it right. And the Trinity Centre in Bristol and various other locations. But being able to go out there and put on these really fun shows with your friends in the first few years of Attack, what was that like to you back then? Because that would have still been, fairly early on in your career as well, Flash.
Yeah, it was like Attack Pro Wrestling was created as a platform, really. Pete and Mark, we were wrestling, not wrestling laws, but we were wrestling up and down the country. But the scene was very different. There wasn't this strong style, British style that there is now that you see up and down the country. It was very much family orientated. It was very much camp show. And I believe that, and I'll argue this for anybody, Attack Pro Wrestling was doing, in quotes, American style indie wrestling in Britain before anybody else. Now, a lot of people will look at this and go, well, what about Progress? They popularized it and stuff like that, and RevPro, but we were in Cattays Community Centre having these absolutely incredible matches back in 2012, 2013, way before these places popped up. And it's a testament as well that everybody who was on those shows, Eddie Dennis, myself, Mark Andrews, Pete Dunne, Wild Boar Mike Hitchman, Nixon Newell, Chris Brooks, Lycos, all these people who came through those shows and came through those doors that weren't being booked anywhere else, that weren't being kind of utilized, end up going on to become mainstays, not just in Britain, but in now some of the biggest wrestling companies in the world. So everyone can say what they want, but I honestly believe that the boom really started in Cattays, and it didn't start because we were trying to create a boom. It didn't start because we were trying to make money. It started because we love professional wrestling and we wanted to do our style of professional wrestling, and we believed there was a market for it and there was fans that wanted to see it, and that passion and that love and that determination just shone through, and eventually it just rippled its way all the way through the scene.
Absolutely. And I want to stick with Attack a little bit longer because Attack Pro Wrestling, they were the first British wrestling or maybe indie group that I actually attended. You were part of that show. I'm going to bring up some pictures here, Flash. You may remember. Santa's still real to us. And this was from the Trinity Centre, December 2014. My first proper British indie. Your match there, you were Kevin McAllister against the Wet Bandits, Mike Bird and Dan Maloney. And I think they eventually caught up with you backstage. But you seem to have this obsession with playing Kevin McAllister. I have heard from one or two of your colleagues that whenever there's an opportunity, you are donning the kind of the bobble hat and the coat and running around as Kevin McAllister. But that was a really fun show. And you mentioned some of the names that are on there. I'm not going to go over them again, but they're all either signed or gone on to international fame, winning championships all over the place. Absolutely, truly phenomenal. But what's this all about with Kevin McAllister then, Flash? And I'm guessing Home Alone is definitely your favourite Christmas film.
Oh, 100%. It's not just even one of my favourite Christmas films. They're 1 and 2 are in my top 10 films of all time. I'd probably say Home Alone. The first one is my is my second favorite film of all time. But I just love it. I think it's incredible. It always just makes me feel fantastic. I remember kind of growing up, and I guess we were around about the same age as Macaulay Culkin, and just thinking he's really cool, and just has that 90s nostalgia to it, doesn't it? It's brilliant, and being able to mix my two loves of Home Alone and wrestling together was just an absolute treat. We did, of course, do Home Alone 2 a couple of years later, which was then while Bo and Mike Burge played the Sticky Bandits, and
Sticky Bandits.
one of my well, they were Wet Bandits in the first one, Sticky in the second. But one of my memories from that is I came backstage and Mark Davis, Dunkzilla, said, "I have never seen anyone have as much fun in professional wrestling as you did just in that match." And I honestly say it's probably one of my favorite matches I've ever had. And every year Christmas comes around, and every year I share the same footage of it happening, because in the hope and the dream that Macaulay Culkin will one day retweet it or reply back to one of my tweets, because I am a huge fan. One of my biggest heartbreaking moments is when I went to New Orleans for WrestleMania and made my WWE debut, and I think I found out maybe 3 days after we'd been out there that Macaulay Culkin was in the city at the time attending wrestling shows, and I did not bump into him. Absolutely heartbreaking. Maybe one day.
There we go. But I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, and I think probably one of the greatest storylines in Attack Pro Wrestling history has to be at the end of your 395-day reign as Attack champion, and it was when Attack went to London for the first time, the Dome in Tufnell Green, and that incredible story, that incredible build, and that wonderful match you had with Wild Boar, where he won the championship off of you. But that whole occasion in 2017 going into 2018, like I say, nearly a 400-day reign, and the build and the match that you two had, yourself and Wild Boar, that's truly special. And I don't think it will just go down in Attack Pro Wrestling history. I think it go down in Brit wrestling history. But take us back to that occasion, and what do you remember about that match and that whole build? And like I say, that match in the Dome, very, very special.
So I'm gonna ruin this a little bit for you, Jonas, right? So my honest to God memory of this match is absolutely hating every single bit, right? And I'll tell you why. And if Bo is watching this, he will know exactly why. 2 weeks or maybe 10 days before we had this match, I had one of the most horrendous cases of the flu I've ever had. Absolutely horrendous. Maybe the illest I've ever been. I'm talking, when people say, "Oh, I had the flu," no, a lot of the time you have a cold. I'm talking, I was having hallucinations. I didn't leave the bed for 2 or 3 days. It was horrific. And I got over it, but to the point where my lungs still hadn't got over it. And we get about, I want to say, 4 minutes into the match, and I'm just spent. I am absolutely exhausted. I can't breathe. I have no gas. I am absolutely gone. And I remember I usually run the corner, and I usually hit forearm, and then I'll do a send. Maybe there's a reversal, and there's my moonsault. And I remember just feeling I had nothing left. And I just walk up to Bo, and I just hit him as hard as I can. And he just looks back at me, and I can see it in his eyes. And he's just like, "Well, I guess we're doing it this way, aren't we?" And then we just beat the living piss out of each other for the next 20 minutes. But it honestly, I'm so glad that I remember coming back. I remember just saying to Chris Brooks at the time, "I'm so sorry, man." And he was like, "What do you mean? It was sick. It was great." But in there, I just had nothing. Again, I was in there with somebody who's honestly one of the best this country's ever produced in Wild Boar. Yeah. And I think maybe if I was in there with anybody else, it wouldn't have been as good. And again, I know him like the back of my hand. I can go in there 7 days a week, twice on a Sunday, and we will have, I don't think I've ever had a bad match with him. And if I was in there with anybody else, it might have been a very different story, and it maybe would have looked a lot worse. But my memory of that match is me feeling absolutely awful all the way through it, and feeling like it was an absolute blessing when I got backstage. But that's my memory. I apologize for ruining that for you, Jonas. But
I loved it.
I'm glad he's looked back on with such fond memories.
I think it is.
I'm glad the build, and I'm glad that that it didn't hurt what went on to be an absolute incredible reign for the Wild Boar.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a wonderful occasion. Like I say, first time in London, first time in the Dome, and I didn't notice anything other than magic happening in that ring between the two of you. And here's a bit of a still from the closing moments. Obviously, the fans enjoyed the hell out of it. But moving on from Attack Pro Wrestling, and I want to talk briefly about Progress, and probably skipping back a couple of years, and probably once again not very fond memories. But it would be this one here, the qualifying match for the WWE Cruiserweight Classic, as it became known, yourself and Zack Sabre Jr. And like I say, probably doesn't bring very fond memories. I think this would have been 2016 because you suffered an injury that kept you on the shelf for 10 months. Is that right, Flash? And kind of, temporarily ruined that dream for you. It should have been an incredible moment for you, an incredible opportunity. Take us back to that. And after the match, what then 10 months were like, knowing that, a possible appearance in the Cruiserweight Classic was scuppered because of an unfortunate accident.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because again, I could probably take myself back to that moment. I could take myself 100% back to how I was feeling during that match. A lot of people, some people know, some people don't, I guess. It's not just a shoulder injury I got in that one. There's a moment where I take a kick off Zack Sabre Jr. and my ankle fractures. I then do a dive maybe about a minute later, and I fracture my ankle again in the second place. And then about a minute or two after that, then I go for a shooting star press and dislocate my shoulder. Go watch this match. It's on the WWE YouTube for free. And then watch after that Red Star, where I then compete for another 8 minutes with a double fractured ankle and a shoulder that was still out of the socket 3 hours after the match. So it stayed out all that time until the doctors could put it back in. There's a moment where I hit a 450, and to quote my surgeon, he watched the footage and said, "What you're doing right now is not possible, Mr. Webster," which is quite mental. But yeah, that was a hard year. I remember being in the hospital, and I remember being told that it was torn. I remember being told that I would have to have surgery on it. And I remember shout out to the NHS as well, because I had that all done on the NHS. Absolutely one of the best institutions in this country. But I remember, of course, I had to wait for the MRI, had to wait for the surgery, and then of course we had to start the rehab. So 10 months overall, I was out, and it was heartbreaking. It was hard, and what was probably even harder at this time was I went from being on the radar of the WWE and having such a big match to then watching the likes of Nixon Newell get signed, and Pete Dunne get signed, and Tyler Bate get signed, and Mark Andrews get signed, and Trent Seven get signed, and just watching all my friends, and then Mark Andrews leaving TNA and him also getting signed, and I was just on the shelf, absolutely devastated. And it is hard, but I look back on that time now and I think about how I was able to kind of use it to kind of springboard myself. So I guess there's two parts to this, really, that I was like, right, how do I keep myself relevant during this time, which is very difficult when you're not able to wrestle? And how do you make sure that people want to see you come back? Because again, I don't believe I'd had my best innings at this point. I believe that I was kind of on the rise, and then I dropped off. And it is very hard for anyone out there that's hurt and is afraid of being forgotten. But luckily, because of that, I was able to start the Wrestling Friends podcast, and kind of, people realized I was able to talk. And the great guys at Pro Wrestling Chaos booked me the entire time. I remember Dave Mercy, the owner, saying to me, as long as I'm able to put a microphone in your good hand, then you will always have value to us. And that was absolutely great. But one of the good things about that time, I guess, looking back on it, is while everyone else got picked up by WWE for that first tournament, I guess I would have been. I like to think I would have been, but there's no guarantees in this business. I didn't get picked up. And what happened then was, I believe that I was maybe one of the most popular unsigned talents in the UK. And from that, then we had a great return from myself. I had a fantastic Pro Wrestling Chaos title run, which then bled, of course, into the Attack Pro Wrestling title run. And while everyone else was signed to WWE, I was also then picked up to do Battle of Los Angeles, which then, of course, afforded me to become an international name. And I went on to become a full-time professional wrestler thanks to those appearances. And I think that if maybe I'd been picked up by WWE at that point because I was well, I would never have got to do Reseda. I would never have got to have done PWG. And for me, I've said this, and I said this to a fan yesterday, my dream was PWG. That was my dream. Like, of course, in your wildest dreams, WWE, of course, all these things. But for me, as a small, skinny lad from Wales who grew up watching these music videos from Reseda in my kitchen's bedroom, I thought that, to me, the pinnacle of my independent wrestling career would be PWG. If I could ever do it, that would be incredible. I'd love to do PWG. So looking at now in the fact that they are no longer in Reseda, they're no longer in the Legion post, and the fact that the moment they are on hiatus because of Super Dragon having personal issues, I have to look at it now and think to myself, maybe if I'd signed when everyone else signed, and maybe if I hadn't got hurt, I would never been able to tick off those major bucket list things.
Yeah.
And maybe my rise to WWE wouldn't have been as big. And also, when the second UK tournament came around, I was a main featured person in that. And maybe if I had been picked up when everyone else had, maybe I would have just been another face in the crowd. But my story, I think, got better because I was out for those 10 months.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier New Orleans and Macaulay Culkin, 2018, and making your debut in a WWE ring around that time. And I think I may have witnessed the debut or very, very kind of early matches of Flash Morgan Webster in a WWE ring, because I actually attended New Orleans for 2018 WrestleMania 34, I believe it was. A wonderful week, a fantastic week of pro wrestling and a great party atmosphere. But on the Friday night, I saw you come out to WrestleMania Access and have a fantastic match. It may well have been against Pete Dunne. I can't quite remember, but something seemed odd about your gear, Flash. Now, enlighten us as to what I might be alluding to, because there was an issue with the gear, and tell us exactly what you came out dressed in, if you don't.
So one of the major rules for any wrestler who is traveling internationally is never check your gear. We're all told you never check it. They lose that bag, you are screwed. So again, with this in mind, I had my carry-on. I had my gear in my carry-on, and I was about to board my flights to I think it was first stop Amsterdam, second then I do believe was Detroit, and then the third was New Orleans. So I get on my first flight and I'm about to board, and they say there's no room for any more carry-ons, and I'm like, I am not letting this out my sight. And they're like, it'll be fine. You can pick. It'll go to the other end. Absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be great. And I tried to fight tooth and nail, and they said there's no way, we have no more room. It can't come on. And they said it has to be checked. And I said okay. And I said to them, this is the biggest weekend of my life. You can't lose this, but we won't. And they did. So I got to. I remember getting to Amsterdam, and I remember we got into Amsterdam late, and I remember thinking there was it was supposed to have been 3 hours between my flights, or 2 hours between my flights, and then it became, the time I ran there, it was like 45 minutes between flights. And I remember just thinking, there is no way the bags are following me. There's no way. And then I get to Detroit, and I have a big layover in Detroit, and I've got to pick my bags up there. When I get to Detroit, it's not there, and I'm just absolutely devastated. I remember seeing Chris Brooks in the airport, and he could tell as soon as he saw me that my face was like. I told him, and he was like, he was getting it for me. And then it became me going, right, okay, so I have 3 matches. Well, I have 2 matches this first day. One is me versus Pete Dunne versus Mark Andrews at Progress, and then I'm also on Access. And I was like, right, I don't have any gear. I don't have boots. I don't have knee pads. I don't have any sort of gear. And I was like, right, okay, I need to try to figure this out as fast as I can. And it's just me in Detroit Airport messaging, texting. And again, it ain't just about finding it. It's about finding people that are the same size as you and stuff that would fit. So Mark Andrews, my great friend, was already in New Orleans, and I told him, and he was able to go to the High Spots merch table and buy some knee pads for me, which was great because, to be honest, my old ones were a little bit scabby and I probably needed some new ones. So that got one of them done. And Mark Andrews is roughly the same size as me. So he was able to slide those knee pads on and was like, yep, they fit. Good stuff. There was no boots there. and boots are very expensive. Luckily for me, I've got a friend called Tyler Bate, same shoe size as me. Tyler Bate gave me his boots. Brilliant. Now the next part is the trousers. How are you gonna solve this problem? So I was like, there's not going to be any tights. I'm going to have to find something that I can wear. And I thought to myself, right, especially what works for me is I could probably get away with some jeans. Now, I'm not quite sure whose these are off the top of my head. There's two here. And I believe I was given two sets of jeans, but I can't remember which pair. And one of them might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of these two people. Mark Andrews gave me a pair of jeans, and the other person who gave me a pair of jeans was a man called Orange Cassidy. So I'm not quite sure which one. I remember I have these two pair of jeans, but I can't remember which ones I put on for those two matches and wore. But I'm pretty sure that I made my WWE debut in a pair of Tyler Bates boots, a pair of knee pads that Mark Andrews bought for me just 24 hours before, and a pair of Orange Cassidy's jeans. So if it wasn't for my wrestling friends and for all the good people who were helping me that weekend, I wouldn't have had anything to wear for my WWE debut. And luckily, they found my bags just 24 hours later. And big shout out to Thomas Juba, who drove me back and forth the airport 2 or 3 times that weekend to see and finally find my bag. So big shout out to Tom Juba for that.
Incredible story. Thank you so much for telling that. Something didn't look right when I was watching you. I had to find out the real kind of insight into that. But I am skipping ahead a little bit. And obviously you got signed. You did the second ever United Kingdom tournament in the Royal Albert Hall, summer of 2018. But the following year, and I was blessed, I was thrilled, I was very, very fortunate to be at NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. Their second NXT UK takeover. The first one was in January in Blackpool, the Empress Ballroom, and then they had takeover Cardiff 31st of August, if I'm not mistaken. A wonderful occasion. There was a real buzz in the city that day. There was a real buzz outside, people waiting to get in, and there was a buzz inside the Motor Point. And a very, very special occasion. And even to this day, Flash, possibly the best or one of the very best ever attended as a fan. And I think a big part of that was watching yourself and Mark become the first ever Welsh WWE champion of any description when you won that triple threat match against GYV and Gallus. But we're going to talk about the match. We're going to break it down, but take us back to that whole occasion, because, you know, waking up that morning, getting ready, traveling to the show, getting into the arena, sitting backstage. Where were the emotions? Where was your head at, knowing that this was possibly the biggest match of your career in front of your home country, your countrymen, your friends, your family, and possibly the biggest opportunity you've had to that date?
I was a mess, John. I was ain't gonna lie, totally mess. I've probably been more open with this over the last couple of years, but some people seem to still not know about this. But I deal with a lot of performance anxiety really, really badly, to the point where most shows, if I'm totally honest, I will be backstage probably throwing up. Even to this day, I can't explain it. I don't know what causes it. It doesn't matter how big the show is, doesn't matter how small the show is. My body now seems to react this way, and I'm an absolute mess. But of course, this wasn't just any show. This was the biggest opportunity of my life, let alone career. So I was a mess. But skipping back a few weeks, it wasn't just the fact that this was the biggest opportunity of my career and Mark's career. And we were in our hometown, sold out in Cardiff. But I want to say 10 to 12 weeks prior to this, I had a match in Cathays, and it was for the Attack Pro Wrestling Championship, I do believe. And I dislocated my shoulder for the second time. Shoulder came out, and I think I went and got it x-rayed, and I went and got it MRI'd, and they were like, "You've tore whatever that surgeon done the first time. You've tore it up. You've destroyed it. You've tore your labrum again." And the question then was, okay, you might have to have surgery. You might have to have a bigger surgery this time. And I was kind of like, okay. And then they announced Takeover Cardiff, and I was like, right, can I rehab this? And if I can rehab this, is there a chance for me and Mark Andrews to be on this show? So there was 2 questions to that. So the question was I could rehab it. There was no guarantee that it would stay in, but I could rehab it, and I think and I think they said to us that it would take 12 to 16 weeks to rehab, and I think that takeover was 16 weeks, and I think that for us to qualify, we had to beat one of us had to beat one of the members of Gallus, and one of us had to meet one of the members of GYV.
That's right.
And those matches landed exactly 10 weeks after the dislocation. So 12 to 16 weeks, and I go back in 10. Now, whether that's due to hard work or whether that's due to stupidity, we will never truly know, Jonas. But the takeover itself was so nerve-wracking because I'd had one match since that dislocation, and there was no guarantee that this shoulder was going to stay in. Now, of course, that shoulder could have came out 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in, and you could be sat here talking to me, Jones, about how I almost became the first Welsh champion in WWE history. So going through that curtain or getting ready for that, absolute mess. I remember Triple H, Shawn Michaels, William Regal, all there on the left. Music starts to play. I'm being sick into a bin. Well, they look at me going, what the hell is going on? Wipe my mouth, whatever. Somebody asks me, am I all right? I go, yep. And we just walk through the curtain. And the rest, as you know, is history. We have one of the best.
What a match.
One of the best matches of that weekend. One of the best tag team matches of that brand's history. Some people say it's the most memorable moment of their career as fans. Definitely one of the most memorable moments of myself as a wrestler. And it's just one of those full circle. There's so many things from that event, John. Is like we became the first Welsh champions in WWE history. I did it with a man that I met on my first day at training. So again, I did that with my best friends, Eddie Dennis, Wildball Mike Hitchman, backstage watching. We also did it in front of our home countrymen, in front of Mark's family, in front of my family and my future wife. And then on top of that, then, the man who made me believe I could become a professional wrestler, Adrian Street, was also in the building from the same town as me. If I was to create this scene for a movie, you would tell me that it's too much. Like this can't be real. And all those things lined up absolutely perfect. And what a full circle moment.
Oh, mate. And I watched the match back today in preparation for this. It lives up every single second of it. The match, the offense, the action. Obviously, the nerves went as soon as you got into the ring because it definitely didn't show, my friends. But, I mean, thinking back to the match, I don't think it could have gone any better. It was super smooth. The sequences, the offense, like I say, the action involving yourself and Mark and that finishing sequence was just... It was dreamlike. It was dreamlike. You couldn't have planned it any better. Thinking back on it now, have you had a better match?
I don't know. For everything else, ticking all those boxes, reactions, as you said. The moment I walk out, the crowd's electric. We get in there, and it's the best atmosphere I've ever had.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking to myself, bloody hell, this is incredible. And I think there's a moment early doors. Can't remember what it is, but there's a moment early doors where we hit something, and I think there's a big old kick out. Maybe it's a swanton early doors, and there's a big kick out. And I remember just looking at hearing that reaction off the crowd and how into it they were and how invested they were in us and our atmosphere. And I remember just looking at Mark and thinking, "We've got this. We've got it." Like, and that was like maybe like 5 minutes in, and that atmosphere didn't give up in it, and it just kept going and kept going and kept going, and. I don't know. It's a difficult one. I've got ones that live in my memory, and definitely ones that I'd put up in, like, if you had to say to me, list your top 10 favorite matches of all time. I've got ones that are maybe swap and change and close, but I don't know if anything ever will top it. Johns, I don't know. Again, as I said, my goal was to appear in a Peter Regime music video once. That was my all-time goal. Never thought I guess sign with the WWE, let alone be able to say that was the first person from Wales to hold a championship with one of my best mates. There's the picture. Yeah, look at that. That's mental, isn't it? I don't think I don't think it'll ever we're in history now. Like we can't ever be taken away from us. So yeah.
There you go. It will be history forever and a day. But skipping ahead again, and we spoke about Takeover Blackpool 1, 2019 December, but January. In January 2020, Takeover Blackpool 2, and it was this match here, Flash. Another really, really memorable, fantastic match. I was there in the Empress Ballroom to witness it all go down. It was chaos. Let's be honest, it was chaos. But you had the talent that were involved and ladders into the equation, and that match there, that move there, that double senton off the top of the ladder onto, I think it's poor Wolfgang, and crashed him through the tables underneath from about 12 feet up. Like I say, that the titles were on the line. You didn't walk away as champions that day, but another memorable occasion for you, another memorable match, and take us back to that day then, Flash.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? One of the there's two parts to this really. There's it's the fact that it's in the Empress Ballroom, which is an absolute iconic and wonderful building. I believe that we had a match maybe a year before that for the pre-show of the first takeover. And it was us versus Imperium, and I think that was one of the first matches where maybe like Triple H and Shawn Michaels saw it and went, wait a second, there's something with this team. They're gelling here. They're not just a team that's been thrown together. They're really smashing this. And that was probably what led us then to kind of get our run-ins with a takeover Cardiff and stuff like that. So to return to that building as former champions and also to be on the main card in a marquee match was just incredible. But I always laugh at that photo of me and Mark coming off the ladder together, because as if anyone has watched that, you see that we set up the tables, and our plan, of course, is each of us are going to swanton off each side, and one table goes to another table. And I remember Mark is dragging Mark Coffey across the table, and the table breaks, and Mark Andrews just looks at me, and it's that moment of who's doing this then? We're both adrenaline junkies. We both absolutely love it. We both want to steal the spotlight, and I think Mark realizes in that moment that it's his table that broke, so maybe it's me that gets to do the cool stuff. So he just goes, "You climb," and I start to climb. And then there's a look in Mark's eye, and Mark then starts to climb up with me. And I guess, okay, we're doing this. And if you go back and watch it, and you go back watch that clip, we get right up the top, and my right leg is not on the ladder. I'm stood on that ladder with 1 foot on, 1 foot dangling off, while Mark has both of them on. And I'm holding on to Mark, and Mark goes to me. He goes, "Let me know when you're good." And I turn to him and go, "I got 1 leg on you, mate. This is all you." So I just hold on to him, and he goes 3, 2, 1, and I just give him a big old push. I grab hold to him, and we fly through that table and get an absolute reaction. But you could tell as we climb that ladder, it's scary. I think we maybe get up to like 4 runs on the ladder, and I think I'm on number 6, I want to say. And then Mark gets himself up to 5, and I've got 1 leg on. And then Mark goes, maybe do you want to come down to this one? And I put my arms into his armpit and pull him up to the next run. And that's when I have to move my foot out the way. And then I have to pull him up to that run. That's when I turn around and say to him, "Okay, this is all you know." So, but yeah, I can tell I think like you could hear a pin drop as we start to climb that ladder. And then when we go through it, the place goes absolutely mental. People chanting, "Please don't die," and stuff like that. But yeah, that was absolutely crazy. That weekend in general was mental, because we did that match, and then literally the next day, so I got on a plane and flew to Florida for the Dusty Classic, and then had what people were saying were the match of the tournament against the Broserweights. So yeah, what an incredible weekend.
There we go. As we start to wind down, let's jump to some questions. And a question that came through to us via Instagram from Dylan. Give us your 5 best memories of being part of WWE. What are some of your standout or proudest memories of being part of WWE for them nearly 4 years then, Flash?
Okay, so like the one, of course, would be becoming WWE champion, becoming an NXT UK tag team champion. So that's that. I'd say it's that. But a lot of the memories that I kind of like, I really am proud of, and ones that I always like to talk about and tell people about, probably are ones that are more behind the scenes. So for me, being able to sign my WWE contract next to Wild Boar Mike Hitchman in the O2 on the same day is just, again, wonderful. And I think he maybe has told this story on a podcast that I got next. Wait a second, he's about to sign. I go, wait a second. I put next to you, we should sign together. He goes, okay, cool. And I get my pen out and I sign it just before him. And go, just so we know, I signed before you. And then he hates to this day, he hates the fact I was able to say that I technically was signed to WWE before Wild Boar Mike Hitchman. Maybe 30 seconds, but I was able to say it as the petty man that I am. But it was great.
He did tell that story on this show, actually. He did tell that story when I interviewed him. Brilliant.
So he still gets it to this day. But again, but again, being able to sign my contract with him is one of those. The other one was after WrestleMania. They do a WrestleMania after party. So we went out to WrestleMania in New York, and they do a WrestleMania after party where everyone kind of comes and everyone there's a free bar and everyone has a drink and everyone has food and stuff like that. So just going to that in itself was absolutely mental. Pat Patterson singing on karaoke, My Way, absolutely incredible. And I remember looking around going, "Is this a karaoke?" And somebody going, "No, Pat Patterson just sings My Way every year." And then it just went back to being a regular party then after that. So that would be one. Being like my debut for WWE at the O2. So that's a big moment for me because, again, I walked out and didn't think anyone would know who I was. I remember them playing the backstage video and they got a reaction, which was mental to me, which was crazy.
Was that a 205 live recording, Flash?
It was. So again, we had a backstage vignette and I remember it pans across and it was pre-recorded. And I remember it happened and there was a reaction from the crowd and I was like, there's 10,000 people in here and it sounded like half those people knew who I was. This is mental. So that was pretty crazy. And then the other one I'd say, I had it then in my head and I seem to think it's just dropped out. So there's two. So this would be, and again at backstage. So one of them is Royal Albert Hall. Being able to tick off the Royal Albert Hall as a venue is absolutely mind-boggling. The fact, look at that. Like, and these next two memories, I guess, are joined together. So I've watched the Royal Variety performance with my grandparents growing up. So many times, come from a single mother. A lot of my childhood was spent with my grandparents and they loved the Royal Variety. So I remember watching that with them. So being able to kind of wrestle there was mind-boggling. And then the other one, which is kind of semi-linked, was one of the I want to say, is it a Blackpool tapings or it was the takeover? I'm not quite sure which one it was. We're walking backstage and I walk into the canteen and there's cannon and balls sat in canteen.
No.
And I'm like, oh my God, and I grab Mark and go, Cannon and Ball here. And Mark Andrews goes, I don't know who that is. Like, what do you mean you don't know who Cannon? No idea. So I grab Mike Hitchman and I go, Cannon and Ball here. And he goes, I haven't got a clue what you're on about, man. And I'm the only one who seems to bloody know who. And I turn to William Regal, I go, listen, I need to meet Cannon and Ball. And I have never ever, like, you know, I've met wrestlers, I've done all this stuff, like big heroes of mine and stuff like that. And I don't think I've ever been more starstruck than when I met Cannonball. And I got to sit down and chat with both of them. Of course, Bobby's passed away now. But I go there, sit down and chat. I wish I got a photo of them. I didn't. But I sat down, listened to all these stories, told them how much I watched all their stuff, told them that I think the Steve Davis skit they did is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And then when I was leaving after that night, again, I can't remember which show it was, but I remember leaving. And I remember Tommy Cannon coming up to me and telling me that he thought I'd done very well. And I thought I did really good. In my head, I just went, Tommy Cannon's a fan of Flash Morgan Webster. This is mental. But again, these are things that people wouldn't know. And I think those memories are quite good. Again, people can look at other stuff and go, oh, what about this, what about that? And again, lots of memories to pick from. But those winning the WWE Championship's the one. But those other ones are ones that people really wouldn't know about and they were happening behind the scenes and would never have happened to me if it wasn't for being in WWE.
There we go. And we got Anne Bruton watching us live at home via YouTube. Hi, Flash. Hope you're well. Question for Sam and I. Who would be your dream opponents and what has been your biggest highlight of your career so far? So I know you've spoken about quite a few highlights, fondest memories, proudest moments there. But do you have any dream opponents and maybe that number one highlight of your career?
Yeah, so dream opponents for me, really. Machine Guns was on that list when it came to tag team wrestling. We really wanted Machine Guns. Hardy Boys would definitely be on that when it comes to tag teams. So I'll do tag teams first, really. Hardy Boys would be up that as well. I know me and Mark would love to tick that off. We'd also, as well, of course, love to to wrestle FTR if the opportunity ever came around to tick that one off as well for tag teams. And then when it comes to singles, guys, one of my favorite wrestlers, kind of when I was coming into the independent scene, was Christopher Daniels. And I still do the Angels Wings as people watch and stuff like that. I have been known to, before it became the Crossroads, and I'll never call it the Crossroads, it's the Last Rites to me. I have used the Last Rites in many matches. Christopher Daniels I'm a big fan of Christopher Daniels. And at one point that nearly happened. It nearly happened at Pro Wrestling Chaos, but it didn't happen. But I would love if I could possibly tick that off the list. I would love it. But I think I know he's winding down. At one point, I asked, and it almost happened. I almost got to wrestle Terry Funk. I really wanted to wrestle Terry Funk. It almost happened at Chaos, but again, didn't. But for me now, I know the two would be, if I'm honest, Christopher Daniels, because of how good, how much I've taken away from him, and how much that would mean to me to finally tick that again. Full circle moment would be great. And then the other one I think would be Samoa Joe. For me, nice. Samoa Joe, he is having this absolute mega run. I think the stuff he's done with Darby and stuff like that, and this AEW run is incredible. And I always believe that I have my best matches against big guys. I believe that they are my absolute best. Outside of tag team wrestling, from a singles competition, me versus big guys, I believe is my best outing. And I think that Samoa Joe is one of the absolute best in the world. And I would love to have a match with Samoa Joe.
There we go. And we've got Richie watching us live at home via YouTube. This is more of a statement than a question, but Flash and Attack, thank you so much. He had a very difficult week last week. It just needed to be an Attack this weekend to let his anxieties out. And Richie has been a busy boy. I think he sent us a little photo of yourself and Richie from the weekend. He's a good boy, Richie. Big fan of the show and a big fan of yours. And Richie did actually send us a question before we went live. Let me see if I can find it now. Here we go, Johners. Technology. Right. Actually more of a question for me. Johners, can you tell us how Flash inspires you and your show Wrestling with Johners? And I may have told this story before, but it was your show. Let me bring up the picture here. Flash Morgan and his wrestling friends that massively inspired me to start Wrestling with Johners back in November 2018. So we've been going 5.5 years, 357 episodes. Well, at least this one is. But I must have listened to the majority of your interviews, the majority of your recordings before I started Wrestling with Johners. And it was a massive inspiration to me, really opened my eyes to the talent on the UK scene. And I just loved your kind of very natural style and everything about it. So for me, thank you so much for everything you did, not just in the wrestling business, but on the podcast game. And hopefully I've kind of carried that torch after your last one, which was about 4 years ago. But a question from me on this subject. I mean, was there any guests that you didn't quite get lined up that you kind of really wanted to record with, or kind of nearly had an interview with, but it never quite happened, Flash?
I'm trying to think.
Or any that you really wanted to, but it never quite transpired?
I'm trying to think. I really am. I think maybe we potentially had Keith Lee was maybe lined up at one point. It didn't quite match up. I almost got William Regal on, and again it didn't seem to line up, which was an absolute shame. There was a few that fell through, and then we managed to get them back. But I was quite fortunate, really. I feel like I rolled the dice and was a bit cheeky after meeting Edge at that after party at WrestleMania, and asked him to come on the show. And after I got Edge, I seemed to just be able to just ask anybody, and I seem to have got them, whether they were signed to the WWE or whether they were signed to somebody else, or it just seemed to. The Edge one social proofed the hell out of the podcast, and I was able to get most people I wanted to. So that was great.
Yeah, I love that one. Really, really did love that one. But I think me and you have got one thing in common regarding guests, and I think that it's possibly me and you are the only two people that have ever interviewed Johnny Saint at his home.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about Johnny the other day, and
He's the man.
He is the man. He's absolutely wonderful. I was thinking about potentially I need to pop up and see Johnny at some point. and maybe even see if I can get him to come down to the school and give a little seminar or something down there. He's not really that. He's a lot further from you than he is me.
It was a hell of a drive. Yeah.
Maybe about maybe an hour and 20, hour and 30 from me. So again, he's not super close. But I do need to maybe drop him a text and see if I can sort something out. If only for me to take the dog up and let the dog jump in the sea a little bit.
That's it. He's right on the coast, isn't he? Beautiful
yeah.
Location. This time of year, it's going to be glorious as well. But I wouldn't want to live where he lives in the winter, and when you've got that wind blowing by you. But really wonderful guy, and one of the proudest moments of my life and my podcasting career. But as we kind of draw this amazing episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 357 with Flash Morgan Webster, to a close, Flash, I'm going to ask you for your socials. Now, we do have a little ticker as far as where we can reach out to you on Instagram, X, Facebook. But the floor is yours, my friend. Where can any of my friends, followers, listeners reach out and say hi?
It's been a while since I've done this, Thomas. So right then. So I guess let me preempt this. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Flash Morgan Webster. I'm on X, or Twitter as it was. I'm at Flash_Morgan. I am on Instagram at Flash Morgan Webster. And of course, you can also find what I'm doing with New Wave Wrestling. And these are the ones I cannot remember. If you search NWW West Midlands Wrestling Academy on Facebook, you'll find us there. And I believe it's New Wave West Midland on X, because they would not let me have one more character. And then New Wave West Midlands on Instagram.
There we go. Just search New Wave West Midlands and it will come up on whatever platform. And you've got some merch as well. I think you've got a couple of different designs out there, certainly Subculture designs, which I'm going to bring up on screen here. I believe these are current designs, pretty sweet designs, if I say so myself. But how can we get our hands on one of them sweet designs? Have you got a big cartel? Would you bring them to shows? What's the best way of getting a Subculture t-shirt, Flash?
So you can order on the Big Cartel. Both those designs fully designed and created by Mark Andrews. What a creative man he is. Created the Subculture logo, created the Subculture entrance video as well. Very creative man. So both of those are over on his Big Cartel. So that's Mark Andrews at bigcartel.com. But to be honest with you, this weekend and at York Hall, we had so many fans coming up to us and buying merch. Overwhelmed by the response we've had over the last 2 weeks, really, over the last year, over the amount of people that have bought our merchandise. And it's one of our favorite things. Come up to the merch table, have a chat with us. Let us know if you've enjoyed the show, any questions you've got. It's one of the best parts of the show. I say this all the time, that only in wrestling can you watch your favorites. So only in independent wrestling can you watch your favorites do what they do in a live setting, and then 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, stand with them across from the merch table, tell them how much you enjoyed it, have a chinwag, chat about stuff, and then literally buy the stuff and support the wrestlers there in them.
There we go. But Flash Morgan Webster, you've been a fantastic guest. I really appreciate you coming on, and can't wait to see you and thank you in person somewhere down the line. And to everybody that's watched and sent in questions, thank you so much. But Flash, top man, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate it.